Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the official YouTube channel of Department of Statistics, St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata. We are live now.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Statistics, St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata, I welcome you all to the international webinar being held this evening. COVID-19 is perhaps the most dominant issue that has plagued us all for the last few months. Gripped with apprehension and anxiety at every moment of our existence, we desperately look for some amount of certainty amidst the uncertainty that prevails. So goes the theme of our webinar today, Understanding COVID-19 Progression with Data Science. We have amidst us two distinguished speakers who have very kindly consented to enlighten us on this raging issue. Father Principal was supposed to deliver the welcome address, but sadly, he couldn't make himself present amidst us today. He has left his message with us. I request Professor Oyon Chandro of our department, who's also the Member Secretary, Academic Council, St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, to convey Father's message. Professor Chandro.
Thank you, Professor Shengupto. For the principal wanted to be present in this webinar, but because of a very important meeting, he could not make it. So he has sent his message for us, and it is my privilege to read out the message for all of you. A very good afternoon to everyone present. In these difficult times, as we are shifting from seminars to webinars, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the webinar conducted by the Department of Statistics of our college on understanding COVID-19 progression with data science. COVID has become an unavoidable word everywhere in recent times. With the pandemic grasping almost every corner of the globe, rising concerns about its spread and its effect on health of the society at large, analyzing data on the infection in order to understand the behavior of the virus has become the need of the hour. Academic institutions play an important role in this regard to engage people, especially the youth, from all fabrics of the society in an online environment to create awareness about the progression of the disease in a safe and responsible way. Statistical tools form the basis of such analysis. One of the very useful such tools is data science, an interdisciplinary field to extract information from enormous volume of data. There is an ever-rising demand of data science, and with the pandemic occurring in this scale, data science seems apt to handle such large volume of data. The Department of Statistics has made use of this opportunity to invite two speakers who have been working on the data on COVID-19 disease through applications of data science to share their findings. I take the pleasure of welcoming Professor Sourish from Chennai Mathematical Institute, India, and Professor Arni Srinivasa from Medical College of Georgia, St. Augusta, USA. In fact, Sourish is our student, so I welcome Sourish in a special way. And I'm confident that both the speakers will throw meaningful light on the progression on the disease. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I take the pleasure of introducing the first speaker of today's webinar. Professor Sourish Das is an associate professor in the mathematics group at the Chennai Mathematical Institute, India. Graduated from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata in the year 2001, Professor Das received his doctoral degree from the University of Connecticut in the year 2008. His research interests include Bayesian statistics, machine learning, algorithms for big data, quantitative finance, and environmental statistics. Today, he will be talking on modeling COVID-19 progression using data science. I request Professor Das to begin his presentation. Professor Das.
Thank you, Devajit, and thank you, Ayonda, for your kind introduction. Just give me a moment. I will share my screen so that, yeah, I think. Okay. Can you see my screen? Shall I start?
Yes, sure is that you can start.
Okay.
It's
Thank you,
visible.
Devajit. Okay. Thank you, Devajit. So, thank you, Devajit, for kind introduction. Thank you, Ayanda, and also thanks Durba for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to come back to the college, though it's a very different way, but time is different. This is the new normal now, so we have to, adjust with these new things. Before I tell you that, as Devajit introduced me, I am not in touch with, biomedical sciences for a while. Though my PhD was in a medical sciences and medical statistics, some of my early publications are actually in, statistical journals which are focused on, biostatistics. And a significant part of my PhD thesis was in biostatistics. But after coming back to India, I really never got a chance to work on the biostatistics. When I was a PhD student at that time, I used to be a research assistant for a doctor in the University of Connecticut's medical school. And I had to go to the hospital regularly. I had to help them with the data analysis. I had collected data, help them collecting data, help them collect, build the proper protocol for collecting data with, com- comply with the, medical ethics or the IRP protocol. So I have the, I already had the exposure of what's going on in the typical medical schools. And when this uh, COVID-19 started, and that time I realized that it's a real problem. And my friends who worked in medical schools and doctors and nurses, they are really the frontline, soldier in this war. So I decided to, I pretty much I dropped all other my research and I just focused on this COVID-19. And since March, I'm just constantly working on these kind of things. So there are a lot of material I have, but I don't think I will be able to show all the things. So I focused particularly on few things, and I'm not going to go into the very detail of the mathematical modelings and all. Rather, I would make this presentation more data oriented and exploratory data oriented approach, rather than more dry modeling approach, because the purpose of this webinar, I understand, is understand the how this COVID-19 is progressing based on data and not the methodology, statistical methodology. So I'll be happy to do the statistical methodology part on the any other day, or on offline. But today I'm going to mainly focus on data oriented approach to understand the disease progression, particularly in the India and its subcontinent. So it's a joint work with my collaborator, Professor Anirban Chakraborty of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Professor Anandamai Mojumdar at Independent University in Bangladesh. She was also a senior PhD student when I was a PhD student at UConn, and since then we know each other, and and we are still continuing our collaboration. Alka is currently you know, uh, is a registered PhD student at Jawaharlal University and visiting PhD student at CMI, and she's working with me in this project. And Rishi Dev is a student at ISAR Pune. He's finishing his master's degree from ISAR Pune and exploring the possibility of doing PhD in different places. So, but he was just available, so he helped us with many things, particularly the analysis of the COVID-19 databases and managing the databases, etc., etc. So, understanding the COVID-19 disease progression with time varying reproduction number. We all know what is reproduction number probably, but I will still introduce the basic concept of reproduction number and how it vary over the time. And then I will talk about little bit of similarities between Sweden and Pakistan. Very two different countries, but there is a interesting similarities. I will talk about the predictions of cases and R naught and some other stuff. So without delay, let's start uh, with our work. So, what is SARS? SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. So, basically, the major syndrome for this particular really bad disease is it mainly attacks our respiratory system at the lungs. So, the first SARS-CoV-1 outbreak started in Foshan, Guangdong province of China, and of China. And it was this outbreak was somewhere in between November 2002 to 2004 of May. So about 2 years, it was the main problem, but it was mostly concentrated in China. There were around 4 or 5 cases actually appeared in India, but those were well handled. So we really don't have much memory of this SARS-CoV-1 in India. Then around 2012, another similar virus appeared, Middle East respiratory syndromes or MERS-CoV, um, coronavirus. And then the ongoing SARS-CoV-2, also known as COVID-19 pandemic, started uh, December 2019 in Wuhan, China. And it looks like, two of the three major thing came from China. So let's understand how typical uh, how we understand what is there is some major concept is there in order to understand how the infectious disease like SARS spread. And the concept is called reproduction number. So what is reproduction number? So this is typically called, patient zero, the who is the first person who probably picked up the virus from, we don't know from where, but somehow it has picked up, or the virus has jumped from animal to a person, and this is the first time we will be seeing uh, you know the first person who infected. And now this person, for the COVID-19, a typical it is uh, believed that a person could be stay infected on an average 14 days. So that means that sometimes there could be a patient who will get cured within 9-10 days, and there could be a patient who could be cured by maybe 18-19 days, but on an average 14 days. Now if we assume this in 14 days the person stay infected, the at the same time person is getting doing his or her regular job, that means possibility that some more people will get infected. Now on an average during this 14 days period, the person can affect 3 persons. Now these 3 person on their period of sickness of about average of 14 days, they will you know infect another 3 days. So within 2 generation of the cycle, the number is now 9. So if it is 3, then within 9, and then 9 into 3 in this way. So in the fourth, by the third generation, 27 people will be infected. So this is called the R naught, or reproduction number. Now, if you see R naught is 3, then by third generation, it is only the already it is being infected by 9. By second generation, it is infected into the, you know, 9 people, and by third generation, it will be 27. The fourth generation, again multiplied by 3. So in this way, it will grow at an exponential rate, and the rate will be, 3 in this case. Now come down to, if it comes down to 1, then what happens? If you have a disease whose R naught, which is also infectious disease, but the R naught is 1. So effectively, these two are, or we did a fantastic job, and these three we have able to cut it down to 1. Now what happens, these two people are not getting affected. Now naturally these two people would have affect another 3, so entire branch is disappearing. Now again, if you look into this person who could have affected, now because of good quarantine, if you can identify the person, at a 0th person, as early as possible with a good COVID test, then what you can do, you can immediately isolate that person. So if the person, if you can identify the person by third or fourth or fifth day, then you isolate the person. Then the chance that during the 14 days of period of disease or the sickness, the person could have infected the 3. Now the person is infecting on an average 1. Some may not be the 1. Then what is happening? This person could have gone into the infect another 3. That complete tree is disappearing. Okay, so in that way, this entire branch is coming down to almost nothing. So if with a little bit of, if you do the algebra, then you will see that if the R naught is 1 or less than 1, then basically disease will disappear. But the R naught is greater than 1, even if it is 1.01 or 1.02, the new cases will come, keep showing up. So you can show that very easily with a simple algebra. But as I said, that I'm not focusing on the methodology. I'm just stating that using this visualization. Now, what kind of R naught we know for other diseases? For measles, we know R naught is 12 to 18, smallpox is 5 to 7, polio is 5 to 7, HIV/AIDS had 2 to 5, SARS, other SARS had 2 to 5, influenza is standard, flu that we pick up, is somewhere in 2 to 3. Now the problem is why this COVID-19 is so dangerous. Now, if you look into the previous COVID or the previous SARS, they were also a little bit dangerous in a sense that, compared to influenza and SARS, what is the problem? That both of them has same R naught. The problem is the fatality rate for SARS is much higher than the influenza. In influenza, the fatality rate is almost nothing. I mean, very small. I mean, it's almost negligible. But for the SARS, the fatality rate is quite significant. For European countries, we have seen that it is very, very high, very high. So this is the real problem, basically. And we'll come on to it, that where the fatality rate is more higher and all these things. So how the previous SARS were handled, and if you look into the previous SARS and the MERS, in those time, basically before it goes out of hand, you have to contain it. So they were contained at the very early stage of the outbreak. If you can contain the disease at a very early stage of the outbreak, you can contain the pandemic. You can block the pandemic. But unfortunately, the this time this even if certain information was known to a particular country, they were sitting on it, and it was for about a month it was believed that it is not contagious, and as a result it has gone, the genie is out of the bottle. So um, so here that's what I'm saying, that reproduction number is basically measure of how fast the disease is spreading in population. It is denoted as typically R0 or R naught. If R naught is 2, then we can say COVID-19 infected person could infect 2 more people during its period of sickness, about 14 days. Some people less, some people more. And R naught is less than 1 means it the disease has stopped spreading in that particular population. Okay, now how you define population is slightly different. That, typically my understanding here, when I saying India, not the entire India, you have to be careful because it's a contagious disease. So you will see that the cities are much more prone to spread because the population density in the cities are much higher. Whereas if you look into the little bit less dense population, then you will see the density, the it's much less. So R naught for different cities, different state will vary significantly. And we are already seeing that Maharashtra is seeing much more cases than Tamil Nadu, than West Bengal and other places. uh, So the data set that I have taken mostly for the international analysis, from the John Hopkins University data repository, global time series of COVID-19 confirmed cases, death cases, and the recovered cases. So list of countries that I have considered effectively two regions. One is the Indian subcontinent, another is the Nordic region. Now, why I took Indian subcontinent and Nordic region? Because Nordic region is one of the best health facilities in the world, and second reason, um, when around February, March, the outbreak happened, the pandemic started. At that time, in the Indian subcontinent, except Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, these countries went into a lockdown mode. With most stringent lockdown was in India. And Pakistan never said that we are going to full lockdown. They do maintain some kind of social distancing. They did say that in one place or not more than 10 people can be gathered, you have to wear mask and those standard things they have said, but they didn't go for complete lockdown of the country. So in that way, Pakistan become a baseline country compared to the rest of the subcontinent. Now, if you look into the Nordic region, Finland, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, they went to a proper lockdown kind of thing at a European standard, whereas Sweden took a much more, the Sweden supposed to have the best healthcare facility. They are really proud of their public healthcare system. They said we can handle it. So they went for no lockdown, only social distancing. So similar. So in that sense, Pakistan and Sweden has a similarity that they never went for a full-fledged lockdown, but they went for a social distancing. And also these two region has India has a Indian subcontinent has really struggling public healthcare system, whereas Nordic has one of the best public healthcare system in the world. And also Indian subcontinent has one of the highest population density, whereas Nordic region has one of the lowest population density area. So those are the contrast that we have.
Once again. তোমার যে স্লাইড তুমি চেঞ্জ করছো that is not happening, students are unable to see your slides.
Oh,
Hello,
sorry about that.
hello. communicate for
Um, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so I've been called and yeah.
Shorishda, your slides are not changing. It's showing the first slide. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
everyone is asking for that.
Sorry about that.
We were trying
So
to contact you.
sorry about that.
It's stuck in the first slide.
Okay. So I am trying to share and so no, this is white.
This is a whiteboard, I think. Yes.
Okay, all right. So um, let me share this. Can you see?
Yes, list of countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can change one or two. Yes, now it's changing. Now it's changing.
Um,
Now it's changing.
Now you can see, right?
Yes, now it's changing.
Changing. Okay, fine.
Yes, yes.
So where you got?
Sorry to disturb,
No,
Shorish.
no, not at all. You should have just told me.
No, we have been trying to contact you anyways.
Oh, okay. You cannot hear me also, or
Yes, yes, yes. We can hear you. Just the slides were stuck in the first one. That's
I
right.
see. Okay, sorry about that.
That's
So you
perfect.
were here. We are okay. All right. So let me just quickly go through that slide. So this is the slide where I was talking about my collaborator, Anipam Chakravarti Anandodi Alka, my PhD student, and Rishi Dev is pursuing PhD in ISET Pune. So let me just quickly give you the SARS. So now you can see the changing slides, right?
No, Shorish, that they are still stuck in slide 8 now. They are not changing.
Okay. All right. So let me just do this. Can you see my slide now?
Now we can see it is slide 2. Yes, slide
Yeah.
1. Yes.
All right. Let me just, and I'm sorry, let me just put it in. When I'm putting it in the
I think the presentation mode, it's
presentation mode,
getting stuck.
it's
Yes,
getting
it's
stuck
creating some
there.
problem.
Yeah. So let me just, sorry about that, but let me just put it into the normal mode. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So this is the introductory slide where SARS, I have to give a definition of SARS, where SARS stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome. And SARS-CoV-1 was the first outbreak on the similar coronavirus in Foshan, Guangdong of China. That was in 2002, and it ran for about 2 years. And then MARS, or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, broke out, happened in Saudi Arabia in 2012. And then current ongoing SARS-CoV-2 is started December 19, of Wuhan, China. So this is also known as the COVID-19 pandemic in the popular terms. So the reproduction number is a measure which tells us how fast the disease is spreading in the population. So this is the disease, the 0th patient. Probably, let's assume that you are at zero, the first patient of the disease. Probably the virus has jumped uh, from a animal to the human, and this is the first patient. And then typically for the COVID-19, we know that on an average, the patient lives, disease period is, or sickness period is about 14 days. That means some patient can be stay, sick for about maybe 18, 19, 20 days. For some patient, they can get cured within 7 to 10 days. So, but on an average, it is 2 weeks period of sickness. In this period of sickness, the patient can infect some people. Now, if it is three, typically at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that it is around three. Some places it reported in little more than three even. So if it is three, around three, that means on an average, the person is infecting three people in it during the period of sickness. Now, these three person is going ahead and infecting 3 more people, and that's how within the second generation 9 people are infected, and then this 9 people is going ahead and infecting 27. So the number of infected people are rising exponentially. Now, if we can identify these people, if we can identify a person who is infected by a test and isolate that person, then the chance that the person will not even meet the other two and maybe just infecting one person. So if this person is not meeting the other two, this particular person is not infected. If this person is not infected, then the entire tree is now vanished. So in that is how you can contain the disease. So how you contain the disease, you test the person. If the person is identify, if it is positive, you quarantine that person, you isolate that person. If you can isolate that person, then your chance of basically infecting more people is much less. So that's how you control the disease. So basically, the basic uh, strategy is test and more test, and of course, contract tracing and all those things are there. So that's how the thing works. And the for the different uh, disease, we have the R naught number. For measles, it's around 12 to 18, smallpox 5 to 7, polio 5 to 7, HIV/AIDS 2 to 5, SARS 2 to 5, and influenza it's about 2 to 3. The main reason SARS is so dangerous because of the fatality rate. So, all right. Uh, so the main data set that I have downloaded from John Hopkins University data repository, and this data is anybody can go ahead and download the data. So I will request the students to go ahead and download the data. In fact, I have a small piece of R code which I can share it with you. You can go ahead and download the data and just do a lot of analysis you want to do. So if any students were looking for some projects, this is a good database to look into. There are so many countries, I mean, not only India, there are so many, I mean, 190 countries that are being affected by this pandemic. So here is the list of countries I'm going to compare: the Indian subcontinent and the Nordic region. The Indian subcontinent, there are one country, except one country, Pakistan, everybody went into the lockdown. Pakistan is the only country which never went for a serious lockdown. They went for social distancing. They did announce some kind of stringent measure, like you cannot do some party, and you cannot do gather more than 10 people in one place and stuff like that, standard stuff. But they never went for the complete lockdown, where so lockdown is basically says even the all the plants and factories, everything is shut down. Whereas Pakistan says that okay, no, we'll keep running our locked factories and plants and everything, but our manufacturing units, but we will maintain the social distancing. So that's how they went ahead. Nordic regions has a similar situation, turns out to be. Finland, Norway, Iceland, and Denmark. These Nordic countries went for the lockdown, European standard lockdown. Whereas Sweden is the only country, they never went for a lockdown. They said we are going for a simple social distancing. The reason is Sweden has one of the best public health system in the world. So they believe that their public healthcare system can handle this this pandemic. They are preparing for it. For they are investing a lot more money than any other developed nations on their public healthcare system. So, so they believe they had a lot of confidence on their own public health systems. And also another marked contrast is, so that way Pakistan become a baseline for Indian subcontinent and Sweden become a baseline for the Nordic region. So that's the one reason I chose these two areas. And also these comparing these two area will be fun because they have a Indian subcontinent has a very struggling public healthcare system, whereas the Nordic region has the best public healthcare system of the world. uh, Another marked contrast is the Indian subcontinent has a high population density, whereas the Nordic region has the low population density. So these two region is somewhat in a two opposite spectrum of whatever you can think of. So in a in a really dense, a really infectious disease or pandemic like situation, you don't want to be in a country like subcontinent, whereas you would prefer to be in a Nordic region. Basically, that is what my point to say. But let us see what the data tells us. Now, when I come, so there is a model called SAR models, which uses a partial differential equations kind of models. I'm not going into the methodology, as I said earlier, that my objective is not to bore you with the dry statistical methodology or mathematical methodology. Rather, I'm going to tell you the story with the data. Thus, we have used a SAR model, effectively standard textbook SAR model. SAR stands for susceptible infection and recovery. So recovered period. And for each period, when a person is susceptible, you in a population you have some susceptible population, then some people get infected, and then some people get recovered or die, so they will be removed. So this is a process, and this process is called no this process is being modeled, and it's called SAR model. And in this SAR model, from the SAR model, you can compute something called R naught, the this measure of how fast the disease is spreading. Now, what we found that at the beginning, initial stage, the R naught for India was near 2. It was hovering about 2. And over the period of around March and April. So this is the first vertical line where the real the lockdown was announced. And then this is after 14 days. Interesting thing, what we found that exactly after 14 days, what happened, the variability reduced significantly, and then we saw a significant trend of going down. R naught is going down. Of course, our objective as a nation is to bring the R naught to 1, but we are not yet at 1. We are very close to 1, but not yet at 1. If you look into the Bangladesh, what happened is they were also starting at a above 3. They came down significantly and then suddenly goes up. So the storyline goes like this: that till first week of April, only the Dhaka Medical School was doing all the testing. On the first week of April, Bangladesh government gave about 10 plus private hospitals to do the testing, and immediately it shoot up. So initially there were a lot of variability, and then they able to bring the R naught almost close to 0, 1, not 0, 1. This is Sri Lanka. Now, if you look into the Sri Lanka, then you will see that Sri Lanka actually brought the R naught below near 1 very fast. Then there was a little bump around May, and then um, it was stayed near 1 all the time. Now here is the Pakistan. Pakistan actually successfully brought it down to 1 by July, to 1, effectively very near 1. Now, if you, as of 12th August, I calculated these are not tomorrow, yesterday, late night. And that time, as of yesterday, late night, R naught for India is 1.19. And for Pakistan, it is 1.01. So uh, all by all means, we can say that most of the subcontinent nation except Nepal and India, they are very close to stopping the disease successfully. Now there is another estimates that comes from the not called doubling time. That means if today I have 100 patient, how many days it takes to multiply the number from 100 patient to 200 patients. Initially it was like 10 days, 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. But now it has gone up for everybody. Um, but data tells us that we have not able to do good job as far as doubling time is concerned and R not is concerned. So higher the doubling time, better off we are. For Pakistan, Sri Lanka, they have done a fantastic job. So I can say pretty much they have able to control the disease and stop the spread of the disease successfully. Just with Pakistan has done it with social distancing, whereas doubling time, whereas India's case is very different story. Now, let's look into the Nordic region. Now, Nordic region actually able to brought it down for Finland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Everybody pretty much brought it down by May, end of May to somewhere between the mid of May. Definitely, they all able to brought it down very close to one. I just checked and few days back, yesterday night, and pretty much all of them has brought it down to one, near one actually. Now, um, there are many other dimension to these problems. So this is one dimension, and I'll tell you all those dimensions. Uh, there is another dimension one people should look into is cases per 100,000 population. Now you can tell, one can always tell me, well, is India and Pakistan comparable? Is India and Bangladesh and Nepal comparable? Because we are a huge country. We are not even a country. We are a I mean, we are a continent size nation. Is it even comparable? I mean, West Bengal, the size of the West Bengal itself is bigger than many Nordic countries. So is it even comparable? So one way of looking at it, okay, how many cases you are getting per 100,000 population or per 1 lakh population? Now that tells us a very different story. If you look into the subcontinent, what we are seeing that initially the green one is the Pakistan, the red one is the Bangladesh, sky blue is the India, and the brown is the Nepal, and these two, uh, Sri Lanka and Bhutan. Now, initially, Pakistan was always at the highest, and then around July, from the July onwards, they able to successfully bend the curve. But till July, the cases per 100,000 population in Pakistan was always highest. Bangladesh initially was doing good, and then they're just going up. Now, what happened? Now, if we initially India done pretty well, actually, pretty lower than Pakistan, but then from July something happened. It just went on going up. So, what happened in July? We all know that unlocking happened. So people have come out. We started our business, and our rate has gone up. So this is what is happening now. We The cases per 100,000 population in India is highest in the subcontinent. Whereas if you look into the, let's look into the Nordic region now. If you look into the Nordic region, the Finland is the red one, Norway is the orange one, and the Iceland is the green one. They pretty much bent the curve. Sweden actually did not able to bend the curve yet, because Sweden never followed actually any, they, I mean, they did bend the curve. They're not at an exponential rate anymore. Definitely they are at a, I think they're at a more polynomial rate, but it's still they have the highest cases among all the Nordic regions, countries. So it tells a very different story for the Nordic region. One more story I would like to tell you. Look at the cases per 100,000 population for Nordic countries. It has reached 800 per 100,000 population. Whereas if you look into our cases, we are still at a 150, 160 per 100,000 population. So what is happening here? My educated guess is the age distribution is playing a severe role here. Europe, it is known that Europe is a much more aged population. The population of Europe, average median age in Europe and Nordic countries are around, I think, 50 plus. So as a result, you will see much more people are getting infected. Fatality rate is much higher in the Europe. In that sense, uh, probably it is not a fair comparison between the Nordic countries and the subcontinent. So these, if you really want to compare them, we have to do some kind of uh, age adjusted calculation, which I'm still working on. I have not able to come up with a age adjusted, how to do it with age adjustment. So I'm still working on that. Let's look into the death per 100,000 population in case of subcontinent and the for the Sweden, for the Nordic countries. Now, if you look into the death for subcontinent or the fatality rate, what we are seeing that since the beginning, the Pakistan's fatality rate was highest in the subcontinent, but from July onwards they did able to bend the curve, whereas in India, as we unlock, our cases has gone up, fatality rate is constantly going up, and we did not able to bend the curve yet. Now, on the contrary, if you look into the Sweden, within Nordic countries, the fatality rate in Nordic countries, among the Nordic countries, Sweden has the highest. I mean, this is just like, almost no comparison. If you just, um, most of the Swedish, most of the Nordic countries are somewhere between 5, 6, 7, where we are now, whereas the Sweden is at the 60, 50 plus. So this is another story that tells us that, um, with social distancing, you can probably curb the disease, but if you are complacent, then it might bite you really hard. Now, how it is happening? The way it is happening is, and why India's curve is come thing. And here is my, I'm just making an educated guess. Just I'm reading many articles and discussions and attending a lot of discussion forum on webinar. And here is my understanding. Subcontinent is much more younger population. Median age in India is 26. Median age in Pakistan is even 20 or 21, I think. And Bangladesh is also in the range of 20s. So subcontinent is much more younger. Now, what happens is, it this particular disease is very weird. I mean, it doesn't, for the, I mean, when, if it is for the young people, it might be some sneezing. If a young people get infected, it might be some sneezing, and then the young person just get better without even knowing that the person was sick. And that is one of the reason we probably have way more asymptotic cases than the symptomatic cases. What happened is, if you become sick, if you become symptomatic, then you go to the doctor suspect that you may have been infected, then doctor asks, okay, you take the test, you, if the test become positive, then you get admitted, or you go to the quarantine center, depending on the sickness level of sickness. Now what happens is, um, you, as a young person going out, maybe wearing mask, but still if you are going out and picking up the infection, you are not getting sick, but you are bringing the infection back to home. And in your home, you have a senior citizen, maybe your God forbid, in your, grandfather, grandmother, whoever, a senior citizen who is getting infected, and that person is getting sick, and that is one of the reason I think the curve is suddenly very high, it's going shooting up like anything. That is what is happening since the unlock. So we have to be very vigilant. We have to be take a lot of responsibility as a young country. I think is a young citizens have to take a lot of responsibility in terms of washing hands, taking sanitizing yourself, wearing mask, etc. This is extremely important, because the most vulnerable part of the society, I think, is the aged people and the people with comorbidity, like who have a diabetes or hypertension and stuff like that. On the testing scenario situation, we are increasing our testing scenarios, but as you have seen, heard, many people have not complained that we are not doing enough testing. Um, we have increased our testing at a exponential rate recently, but probably we need to do more because our rate is going up. So there is no complacency or any you know um, thank thanks for this, or compliment for increasing the thing. One small good news is test positivity, that if you are doing 100 tests, how many tests are becoming positive. So initially the test positivity rate was near 4%, 5%, 0.04, 0.06 stands for 4% to 6%. Then it was going up constantly. And around July, the test positivity rate, you see, has crossed on an average 10%. And mid of July, it has reached to 14%, 15%, 14%. Um, and then fortunately now we have seen some drops, but it's not good enough yet. It is near 10% now, but it should be well below 10%. I mean, that indication that when it was going up, the test positivity rate going up is a bad indication actually. So we should have been careful in July when the 10% rate have been breached. We would have, if we would have, my feeling is, if we'd have scale up the testing at that time by June and July, it would have been much better. It would have been much better. So I will just give you a brief introduction to the model, the prediction model that I am using to do the prediction. So delta nt is the new incidence at time point t, and where delta nt is the nt minus nt minus 1. So the first difference between the incidences between the two time points, equal to beta naught plus beta 1 log t plus beta 2 nt minus 1, delta nt minus 1 plus beta 3 r0 t. And now then epsilon t, and epsilon t is following normal. I'm assuming it's a white noise, following normal 0 sigma square. And then model for reproduction number is I'm modeling as a ln r0 t equal to gamma naught plus gamma 1 ln t plus epsilon t, and epsilon t is following normal 0 sigma square. So this is the pretty much the one version of the model. There I'm using actually 5 different version of the similar model. This is basically version 1. I'm showing you. The other models are a bit complicated, but those models are basically some extended version of this model. So this is the first thing I tried and which has worked. So what we have seen that for the R naught in the March, we got around 25th of March is the day when the lockdown was announced. And then that time it was 2.3, and by in a 1 month time it came down to 1.4. Another 1 month time it came down to 1.3. Then it came down to 1 in end of June. It came down to 1.25, and here June and July is the month. Effectively, July is the month where all the problem I have faced. So what happened is, at that time I predicted that it will come down to 1.6 by the end of July, but it did not come down, and it actually hovered around 1.3 or 1.25, effectively 1.25. And this is the July is the period you see we have seen a exponential rise in the death cases, exponential rise in the cases per 100,000. This is July is the really bad month. Effectively, in 1 month we were here, at the end of the beginning of the first month we were well below, and then by the end of the month we are champion, we are the best. So anyway, we have to live with the data. Um, so uh, now on the first of August, I have made some prediction. The prediction right now, if the trend continues, I'm hoping that it will come down. The R naught will come down to, by end of August, somewhere in between 1.12 and 1.20. This is the 95% confidence interval. And the September, it will be 1.05 to 1.15. By October, it will be 1.02 to 1.14. But as we are going away, my interval is actually increasing. The larger and larger interval we are seeing, that because of the distance from today is very high, I mean very big. So that is what is happening. So how is my performance when it comes to the prediction of cases? March 25, I made a prediction for 30th April. At that time, my prediction was, if the trend continues, so March 25 is the date where the announcement happened. And that time, the thing was increasing super fast. So I took the data till March 25 and did a prediction. And that time I predicted by the 30th April, we will have 57,000 cases. On 30th April, we found that, 34,000 cases, or around 35,000 cases. So my sense was, yes, lockdown is working, because that if the trend has been definitely slowed down. Then on May 9th, I made a prediction for 30th June. I said it will be 3,90,000. Then on May 30th, I had to correct myself and I said 4,60,000. And I end up, we found finally 5,85,000 cases. So from the May, we are seeing this underestimation. Say it again. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
Shorisda, you're audible. Yes, Shorisda.
Okay.
You're audible. You're audible.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm wrapping it up. I'm wrapping it up. Yeah, I'm almost done. I'm wrapping it
No,
up.
no, you have time, Shorisda. You continue.
Okay, all right, all right. And then May 29th, I made a prediction for 30th July, which where I said that, okay, 11 lakh, some the cases will be somewhere between 11 lakh and 14 lakh. And actual cases on 30th July midnight turns out to be around 17 lakh, 16 lakh 95,000 cases. Now, the underestimation again happened because my in July I expected that R naught will come down to around 1.16. That did not happen. It stayed at 1.23. And because of that, 3 lakh more cases has come up, and naturally fatality also more. So on 1st of August, I made a prediction, and I figure out in this time I did something slightly different. On 1st of August, I said that, okay, look, on 31st July, my R naught is 1.25. My number of cases is 16.96, as about 17 lakh. Active patient is 5 lakh 65,000. Recovered already 10 lakh. Now, one another angle is, instead of prediction of cases, I'm now focusing more on the active cases, or the number of patients, because what is happening as we are progressing into the disease, the number of recovered also increasing. And in fact, one very good news for India at least is rate of recovery is very good for India and the subcontinent overall, and the fatality rate is significantly lower compared to the European nations. Our fatality, which is a very good news for us actually. Now, so it is important, instead of predicting the cases, it is important to predict the active cases, because it will tell us that at a this day, 31st July, we have 5,65,000 patients. So that means government has to arrange quarantine center, hospital beds, ventilator, everything for that many people. So government and administration can take a necessary step for that kind of scenario. So now I'm proposing two scenario, A scenario, B scenario. A scenario is R naught will keep going down as expected. I'm saying that by 31st August, R naught will go down to 1.14. By 30th September, it will go down to 1.09, and 30th October, it will go down to 1.05 or below. If this happens, then the number of cases will be around 37, 38 lakhs, 68 to 70 lakhs, and 1 crore 16 lakh to 1 lakh, 1 crore 20 lakhs, near about that. And active cases will be somewhere 8 lakh to 9 lakh, somewhere around 12 lakh, and by 31st October, it will be around 12.5 to 13 lakhs. Now, that means effectively government, we don't care about the cases, 1 crore हो 2 crore हो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, but by 31st October, government should prepare for near about 14 lakhs uh, active patient. So we have to arrange that many quarantine center, hospital beds, ventilator, and all the things that is required. Now look at then the scenario B. Scenario B says we failed to reduce the R naught and we got stuck at 1.2 because we are unlocking our activity. People want to do party, they want to go to the have their life, so it will not come down to the 1 point, that where we at the level we want. It gets stuck at 1.2. If that happens, then what we are seeing is the number of cases by end of the 30th October, 31st October is near about 1.1 crore 94 lakh to 2 crore 6 lakh. And the active patients will be near about 17 lakh to 19 lakh. So 13 lakh, here I'm expecting about 13.5 lakh, and here I'm in the scenario B, we are expecting near about 19 lakh. So near about 5 to 6 lakh more patient you can expect. And the fatality rate, if we can able to reduce the R naught to 1.05 by the end of 31st October, then the fatality rate will be somewhere between 3 lakh to 3 lakh 78,000 or 3.5 lakh. And scenario B, if we fail to reduce R naught, then it will be fatality rate will be 5.17 to 6.63, around 6 lakh fatality. So it's about double fatality rate. Remember that these who are the vulnerable. Vulnerables are our senior citizens are the most vulnerables. Then comes the people who are with with the diabetes and with the hypertensions or all kind of comorbidities. So this is extremely, this is scenario is grim, I would say. It's not very good scenario, but we have to deal with it. So in a discussion, I would say, if somebody asks me if unlock means a higher chance of fatality, is there a way we can avoid the such grim scenarios? Answer is yes. Test more, you do more contact tracing, you identify the infected people, isolate the infected people, wear mask, maintain social distance. That's it. That's the only way until the vaccine showed up in the market. And remember that even if vaccine comes, no, all 1.35 billion people will not be vaccinated on day one. It will take about a year long process to vaccinate 101.35 billion people to vaccinate. Okay, so even if vaccine appears tomorrow, remember that it will take at least one full year to vaccinate everybody. At least one full year, maybe more, maybe 2 years or 2.5 years. I don't know. It depends on how fast our pharmaceutical companies will be able to scale it up. So on a typical vaccination, pharmaceutical companies produce 2 crore or 3 crore copies of the vaccine. We need 130 crore copies of the vaccine. I mean, it's just humongous. I mean, we don't know whether we don't have that skill. If we don't have that skill, we have to wait. We have to wait in the queue. So even if the vaccine comes, we are not getting vaccinated tomorrow. So we have to maintain social distancing. We have to get used to with wearing mask and maintain social distancing. And people have to help each other in terms of if somebody have a chance that, we, the only way we can survive in this situation is, I think, be empathetic to people. Sometimes I read stories in the newspaper which are heartbreaking. I mean, people are not helping each other. This is, I mean, if people just walk around if somebody is sick, I mean, unless we are empathetic, I mean, I don't know how can we survive this for another 2 years. I think it will take at least 2 years of long. It is going to be another 2 years of long fight. I mean, sorry to say that. I keep writing about. I mean, till March you will find. I mean, I write my blog and I keep writing about the stuff which interest me in my blog. But since March, I'm mostly writing about the COVID-19. So if you want to find more about it, you can check out my blog. A small side note: the name of my blog is Abacus. The small side story about this Abacus name is, you we stat department in St. Xavier's have a magazine called Procor Show. I was the third batch of department, and in our time, Procor Show started, and I was actually the first editor of the Procor Show. And my proposal for the name for the magazine was Abacus, but majority student liked the name Procor Show. So in a democratic system, everybody went for the Procor Show. I also went for that, but I kept the name for my blog. So if you like the name, you can, if you want to visit, happy to welcome and have a, if you want to more information about COVID-19, please visit the blog. Thank you very much. Um, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shorishta, for the beautiful, meaningful presentation. Uh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
We have some questions raised from the audience. If you could kindly address them.
Sure.
The first question is from Poulomi Mukherjee. She asks, is reproduction number a constant number for a particular disease, or it may vary as well in different generations? And how can it be a fraction?
Very nice. So, reproduction number is not a constant. It can vary from generation to generation. It can, how can it be fraction? It's like average, right? If somebody's age is, if you say no, I will tell you a nice story. So I think it is from Sierra's one of funny writing. So once a minister asked that, death rate is 3.5, what does it mean? The IS officer answered, well, 3% is already died and half 1% is on the way. So it's like that. So it's like average. So R naught is not a particular number, it's like an average kind of estimates. So that's why you get a fraction.
Right. I think that will suffice. Another question, it is my question.
Mhm.
In the subcontinents, as reported in newspapers and various other articles, due to high population density and, as you had said, for the struggling public health system, it's evident that there has been a lot of underreporting of the data.
Yes.
So could it be that the reproductive number of the disease in the subcontinents is shown to be one, but actually they could be more than one? Because when you were comparing the countries of the Nordic region and the subcontinent region, apparently the subcontinent countries also showed a reproductive number close to one, if not one. But could it be that due to underreporting, the data is showing one, but actually there was it is much more than one? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So good question. So here is, yes, underreporting is happening for sure. I mean, there is no doubt about it. That is one reason. But underreporting is happening in every country. Remember that. Why? Because of the asymptomatic cases. The people who, especially the young people who are getting infected but have no symptom
Right.
other than just some sneezing. Maybe you can think of, oh, why I got a dust allergy. Fine. For 14 days, you are in the normal people living like a normal, but you are infected with COVID-19. You have a complete normal life, right? But
Right.
in meanwhile, you are infecting people,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, in my sense, since we are a very young country, so because and the asymptomatic cases for India and the subcontinent region is much higher,
Okay.
whereas in the Nordic regions, the because they are much more aged population, the asymptomatic cases, the proportion of asymptomatic cases is lower. Okay, and
Okay.
that is why they have cases per 100,000 is way more than cases per thousand for us. Now, R naught is basically getting calculated based on the number of incidents every day we are getting, not based on the cumulative incidences. So, number of incidences every day, new incidents we are getting tested positive.
Right.
So, if I'm seeing that, okay, today I got 2000 cases,
Yes.
actual cases might be 5000. So, 3000 are
Right.
not getting reported.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm asking. Yes. Yes.
Exactly,
True. True.
exactly.
True.
My educated case is are not for the, if you look into the Nordic countries cases, they have brought down the Nordic countries, able to brought down their are not by end of May. They just brought it down to
Yes.
one,
Yes.
right?
Right. Right.
Why? Because their number of testing was
Huge. It was
20
in large
times
scale. Yeah.
more than
Exactly.
our cases.
Mhm.
Because they even tested all their asymptomatic cases. Matlab,
Right.
they have money, they just went ahead and test everybody in the in the vicinity. That's it. If
Right.
somebody get affected, if somebody get tested, anybody in that region, in that mohalla will be getting tested. That is
Right.
what happened in Nordic region.
Right. Right.
Whereas here, what government has done, government said, okay, you got positive.
Yeah.
In this region, everybody stay home, huh? Okay.
Right.
होता
Right.
बस हो गया बस उतना ही हुआ.
From the
But
patient side, also perhaps they are not going and getting tested. Perhaps
yes,
that is also
that
a
is
reason.
also this fear. That is why I say it at the end of my discussion, that we have to be very empathetic to the each other. We have to
Right.
respectful and empathetic to each other. Unless we do that, I mean, people should be very I mean, feel safe that, okay, if I get positive, it's nothing, it's just a disease, I will
Right.
get by. And when they will feel that if the community is supportive, we have to build a very supportive community. I understand that it's very scary, but look at the recovery number.
Right.
Our recovery number is so well. So it's so many. So why what to scare? Huh? Yeah. Matlab, our fatality rate is so lower than other countries. Really, we shouldn't be scared, honestly, to be
Right.
honest. So we should actually help each other. If somebody really sick, I mean, nothing to scared. I mean, I who knows, even I am already being tested. I mean, I've been infected and get cured. I have no idea. I mean,
Yeah, that's the yes.
that is the point. And the
Yeah,
thing is, if you is few days back, I think a sorority study has been done in Delhi, and this is the first kind of study which says that there is 20% population of the Delhi is already being infected,
right.
but only what maybe less than 1% is being reported positive. So this is really the scenario is we have to be much more, we have to build a much more supportive community than, and we have to help the people who are getting sick. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shoriza. Another question we have from
Yeah.
Shashwata Mukherjee.
Mhm.
He asks, do these prediction models take into account various confounding factors that affect the spread of the disease?
Good question. Um, there are a lot of confounding factors are there. For example, health facility available, and all these things. Honestly, those data are not available that freely. So what all I have available is effectively time, uh, confirmed cases, death cases, and recovered cases. So I build the model based on these data. So yeah, I mean, if we can take care of those confounding factors, it would have been much better. But sorry, no. Right now, I don't have the data.
Right. Sure, is there another question from Hena Palta?
Mhm.
Recently, it was discovered that the incubation period might be more than 7 to 8 days. Will this increase the reproduction number?
Yes, it might. It might increase. Right now, well, uh, if the incubation period is more than 7 to 8 days, say 10 days, that means the disease sickness period, average sickness period is more than 14 days. If the average sickness period is more than 14 days, then R naught will pushed up. Absolutely correct guess. Uh, all these estimation are being done based on the assumption that people will get better within 14 days, or average on an average 14 days, not
Right,
so yes.
right, right. Shoriza, we have a last question.
Mhm.
Pakistan and Bhutan have same R naught, but
Yeah.
have significantly different doubling times. How
Yes.
so? Are
Yeah,
these?
good question. Good question.
Yeah, yeah. And in
Bhutan,
addition to that,
Bhutan
he has
estimation.
asked.
Yeah, let me quickly
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
this,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and
Sure.
then I'll take the second
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Bhutan cases, see, Bhutan has how many cases? Maybe not even 100 cases, honestly. So Bhutan's estimate is a bit of a dicey. The number of samples for Bhutan is not even 100. So, I mean, the 75 in a sense that they have not seen the cases for a while, in that sense, or whatever the last time plus whatever the are not. So these are not is bit of a rounding off if, is happening.
Yeah.
And doubling time for Pakistan is more reliable estimate because they have much more numbers, in that sense, number of cases to estimate the
Right,
yeah.
right. I think you have already answered the second question. He had
Mhm.
also asked, are these R naught values approximated? So you're talking
Yes,
about around,
yes,
yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, I have, because of the visual appearance, we have rounded off to 2 digit. Uh,
Right,
because typical my experience is our human brain does not handle after 2 digits. That's my typical
right,
experience. But when if I have to report it into a say academic paper, probably I will report up to maybe 3 or 5 digits. Yeah.
right, right. So I think we come to the end of the first session for that.
Thank you very much.
With
Thank
that,
you. Thank
yes,
you.
on behalf of everybody, I thank you, Professor Das, for your time and beautiful presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Yeah. So I will stop. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Before I hand over to Professor Madhura Dashgupta for the next session, let me just remind you that a feedback form will be circulated towards the end of the webinar, which you will be required to fill up in due time. You'll be given time for that, following which the certificates will be circulated. The details of it will be announced duly, so you need not worry. They'll be circulated at the end of the webinar. So I hand it over to Professor Madhura Dashgupta now for the second session.
Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the second session of today's webinar. Let me have the pleasure of introducing our second speaker of the day, Professor Srinivasa Rao. Professor Rao is a professor in the Division of Health Economics and Modeling, Department of Population Health Sciences, and Director at the Laboratory for Theory and Mathematical Modeling, Medical College of Georgia, Augusta University. Until 2012, he held a faculty position at the Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. Professor Rao received his doctoral degree in mathematical biology from IIPS Bombay in the year 2000. A recipient of several prestigious awards and honors, Professor Rao's research interests include mathematical modeling, deep learning, probability, application in medicine, harmonic analysis, and artificial intelligence. I'll now request Professor Rao to begin his presentation. Professor Rao.
Thank you, Professor Madhura Dasgupta. And I want to thank everybody involved into the seminar, especially Dr. Durba Bhattacharya, who has been in touch with me for a month. And then I was very excited. আমার খুব ভালো লাগলো এখানে আমি কলকাতা অনেকদিন ছিলাম and অনেক ছাত্রদের পড়িয়েছি সেন্ট জেভিয়ার ছাত্রদের যখন আইএসএ কলকাতা ছিলাম. So I want to thank once again for this brilliant opportunity for me to give my talk in this important occasion of COVID. So let me share my screens. Yeah. As I mentioned, this will be focusing. I also want to, by the way, I want to also thank the previous speaker, Dr. Professor Sourish Das, for his very excellent talk. And the title of my talk is AI models and COVID. That means artificial intelligence and models and the COVID. Based on my works, what as per Dr. Durba Bhattacharya request, I'm presenting based on whatever my interpretation of the COVID since the beginning of the epidemic. So organization of my talk, if I see that this will be consisting of two parts. One is artificial intelligence model aspect, and the second part is the mathematical modeling aspect. AI model, as we all recollect that, I was in India for some family reasons for about 70 days from December to February, almost end of January. And then, at the time when I returned back to US to start the new semester, and there is no, people were thinking, including the governments, there is no issue with the COVID entering into the US. If it comes to US also, we all can handle it. That's not a problem. So people, it's not that, they were not correct. I mean, what happened was, enough information was not generated by end of January, including WHO. WHO did a lot of wrong conclusions based on the data available, and initial publications also misled the various governments. So hence the US also thought that, the government of US and CDC, various people thought we all prepared and not a problem. And I also fall in line with that. And at that time, I thought that instead of developing a mathematical modeling, usually I have been working on the mathematical modeling and other things for many years. When I was at ISA Kolkata also, I have been working on the avian influenza. When when the bird flu occurred in 2009, 2008, that period, 2010 in Kolkata. I also traveled with the government officials to various districts of West Bengal, and then to build a mathematical model which was timely delivered to the government that time. And the swine flu, various things have been involved. But when this particular COVID situation came, I was concerned about identification, because the case definitions were not very clear in the beginning of February, end of January. And then many people were not aware of, the epidemiologists and the officials are not aware of the symptoms of the individuals who are infected. Hence, at that time, I thought of, coming up with a model to identify the individuals. I thought that would be the appropriate for that time of the situation. And first I developed a mathematical model, and then incorporated the probabilistic model, incorporated the AI setup into that. And then I showed my clinical colleague, whether he is interested to collaborate with me to just to read the draft and make any clinical sense out of it. That's how we need to do the collaborations. And then we come up with the first paper. I wrote the first draft, and then my clinical colleague really helped me to make although I developed the algorithm based on CDC's defined. It's not my own algorithm. My own definition of coronavirus. CDC's definition and WHO definition and their symptoms and signs. Using that, I developed the algorithm, and then consulted my clinical colleague. He was instantly accepted to work with me. And then he's Joe Vasquez. He's a chief of the clinical infectious diseases. He's a medical professional. And then we both published this article way back in February. This is the first AI model, artificial intelligence model, to identify coronavirus in the world. And instantly, the various hospitals across the world, they consulted me to how they can include that in this particular their hospitals and identify the patients. So I would like to go through the basic structure of this model. First phase, the model going to collect the information, travel history and other information like signs and symptoms, and through mobile phones, and then through app at the front end. So front end information is collected through the app. And then the second phase, the background information, once the data collected through an app designed by me, and then that app will be installed into the mobile phones. At the time we were planning to make it free for all because it's a public health concern. And then at the back end, once the data is entered into the app, at the back end, the systems are in the hospital. And then systems in the hospital would be able to inform that particular individual who responded to this particular app. Responded within a minute. That person need to go to a hospital to get a confirmatory test, or do not have to worry. So these aspects will be received by the particular respondent within a minute. That's because of the back end will be an AI model. So there is no human involved. Except the respondent entering the data. The rest all things are done by the technology, and then that actually simplifies the hospital rush to the hospital. Everybody is curious. Everybody at that time, people were really curious to know their status, whether they will get the infection, they won't get the infection, they already have the infection. They recently traveled from China, because the traveling around the Christmas time last year December, many people, the flights are normal. Just the traveling was very much normal. There was some everybody was curious what happened, and then already we identified 2 cases in February in Washington. Already 2 people are confirmed, and then still we thought the numbers were so less. That's fine, we can handle it. And then so this particular model at the back end of the AI and front end of the app together combinedly would function. And then the particular respondent, whoever answers, he or she will be given an address where to go to the hospital. And then that particular hospital also will receive a alert saying that so and so person will be coming, so that is a cross check between the respondent's data and the hospital data will be done, and then the patient will be taken for testing. In pictorially, if you see that at the first phase, this is a geographical region of the in a particular hypothetical situation, and the house in, I mean, this is a house in a region, and then this is the particular individuals. The circles are individuals, and the dotted lines are the the dotted lines are the this thing, the the house in a geographical region. And then these individuals are the they are the individuals who have been sent with an app, the information about this COVID identification app. And then once that app is downloaded by them, you see that the blue dots indicates that they were respondents. They responded to the survey, and the yellow dots indicate that they were not respondents. They did not respond to the survey. So that means all the individuals need not respond to the this particular survey through mobile phones, and some of them only could identify. And then those who have responded, among them, the model will be able to identify. That's why you see that in the part C of this particular diagram, some of the individuals, the red color, some of the individuals with red color also have a yellow dot. That means these individuals are those individuals who were not responded, but they also might have the virus in them. Similarly, the blue dotted circles some of them blue dot circles are having the red circle. They turned into red circle. That means they were identified to have the possible coronavirus, and they need to go immediately to the hospital for further testing, confirmation of the test. This is what the pictorially the idea of the model, and details can be seen in that citation I mentioned. So that came up in the IDSA, that is Infectious Disease Society of America's flagship journal, ICHI, Infection Control and Hospital Epidemiology. They published this model, and then that received wide attention. So this is the structure of the model. That's what you see that here myself and Joe Vasquez. And then let me just switch out. Just want to, this panel is disturbing me. Yeah, hence the probability of identification. What did we do was, once the model is there, naturally, we need to know that what is the probability that the individual would be identified through the coronavirus among the respondents. Hence the one theorem. I'm not going to the proof of that. I can just roughly give the idea. Suppose there are some individuals are there in region, and then out of them, suppose any individuals are there, what is the probability that some of the individuals are identified among the respondents? What is such probability that among the respondents of small n number, small n1 number, that means smaller than the respondents number, or what is such probability, smaller or equal to? What is such responsibility? What is the such probability of identifying them to have the coronavirus among the respondents? That is the probability, because all the individuals, first of all individuals may not respond to the survey. Second, among the respondents, all individuals might not have the symptoms and signs. So what is the probability of identifying among the respondents? And then I can come back to the detailed proof depending on the questions in it. I will be very happy to this thing. But in some quick idea, if you see that the total population is divided into two parts, U and V, among the respondents and non-respondents. That's it. That they are mutually exclusive. They are in a region. You divide them into two parts: those who are responded, those who are not responded, U and V. And then among the respondent, these are the individuals who are identified. That is subset of the U. And then we have two events then occurred. One is out of respondent cases, how many are identified, and how many are actually responded. Two events. So responded, identification is conditional to the respondent. That's what E1 and D is a conditional probability. And then the probability that having identification is N1 multiplied by N square. And then, as I mentioned, this particular study, at the time I had no intention to study the growth models and understanding the usual things what I do, but I was not interested at the time because I was not sure. There is no data. There is not. I mean, the governments are very comfortable saying that we are all okay. Nothing is not going to. It's going to confine to only to Wuhan. We are all very happy. It's not. I mean, not coming out of the. So I did not also focus on that. But then the reviews received all over the world, across world, into this particular model received about 150 to 200 media outlets in various languages, including in the US, India, Europe, and many other countries, non-English languages, non-English media also. So this particular received, because this could save the lot of time by the hospitals. So one of the leading magazine called Fast Company, which actually identifies the major technological innovations, they also reviewed this particular model in their magazine. And then also Campus Technology, which worldwide, especially US university-wide technology innovations, they also covered this. Of course, the leading newspaper in India, they also mentioned this particular study in their headlines, and sometime in the beginning of March. And the Jaguar, our regional science writer, they also wrote here. And then also Innovator magazine, many others, CNN, Fox, all the news channels, they try to take the advantage of this particular AI model by February, March. So we were very encouraged by this particular idea of identifying is more important than understanding the growth at the time. That not now. Then as soon as this came up, we want to study because by the time this article came up and they received a lot of attention, the data from Europe started growing. The data means in the epidemic in Europe started growing, and data was they made available, little bit of data was made available. And parallelly, myself and other my colleagues in US, like Washington, and then other in Wyoming, Stephen Kranz and Peter Polyakov, we three were studying anyway the understanding the underreporting of in general for any epidemic. We were developing methods for that using harmonic analysis that was going on independent of the coronavirus. That particular article also came up in the March, and immediately we want to test that article on the 9 countries across the world at the time, end of February and beginning of March. We want to study that particular article, test the methods in the article to understand what level of underreporting is being done in the coronavirus, because we know that everybody can't report it, and because everybody is not identified, as you just saw in the AI model. So initially we published various articles. One of that on Indian, this thing came up in the Current Science, which is one of the leading journal from India and read all over world. This first model to understand underreporting and the epidemic spread came in the month of March. Then various other articles we published, and then the latest one is going to come up in the notice of American Math Society sometime early next year. So they wanted us to write a how this summary of the mathematical models, how do we able to succeed in giving practical planning. And the basic structure, if we look at the model, I would like to go through the some non-technical aspects of the model to make it more accessible. Suppose we have the reported cases, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. They are the reported cases over a time period. And then these reported cases need not be complete, in a sense that all the cases which are diagnosed only will be reported. Many individuals who were not diagnosed need not be reported. And among the it is impossible to sometime find how many were non-diagnosed, because we don't have any. It's a completely impossible to, unless we know exactly some other way to, everyone is mapped somewhere technologically, we have no idea. So underreporting is a major issue for any epidemic, especially an emerging epidemic when signs and symptoms are not well defined. Hence, the idea of that particular the framework is that here you see that in a situation, suppose say this interval, the first time interval, we have you see that some number of individuals are there, and black dots indicates that they are reported cases, and they are non-report. The white circles indicates they are not reported cases. And then if you see the same time point, there could be, the individuals are same, individual geographical location individuals are the same, but there could be different in number of, the size of the reported cases could be same, but the identified individuals could be different. So just because the number of reported cases same within a time interval does not indicate that the identified individuals are same. There could be variation among the individuals reported, so that also need to be considered. And then you see that here in the situation also, the number of individuals reported are same. The black dots, the number of black dots in this and these two are same, whereas the actual individuals are different. So that means we might be misled. Suppose in this case, you see that, you have the 4 plus, the 5, 9 plus 10. The 10 individuals are infected here, but these 10 are different from these 10, although they are reported same interval. So not only the reported number, but their geographic location identification is very important. That's what linking with my linking with our first model. So this is what this method of understanding using the harmonic analysis. That's what we published. And then I'm not going to again details of this thing. The idea, the central the proof of the central theorem. What we proved was the size of each graph within the intervals what you saw could reach local steady state, and the global steady state is equal to the one of the local steady states. So the global steady states, when we consider what could be the maximum number, or optimum number, that would be one of the local that cannot be different from the one of the local steady states. So that's the idea of that. And then what we done was, this particular graph is important here, because we try to adjust, and this particular thing is now become valuable for the COVID, because reporting is very important. Not only the reporting, the timing of the reporting is very important, crucial. For example, this particular interval, if you see the reported individuals, they might have infected here, and those who are in the another interval reported, some of them are reported infected in that interval, some of them are reported in the diagnosed in the previous interval. So this readjustment has to be done to understand the epidemic growth. If all the cases are, although just any number taking into an interval arbitrarily or reported, and if you don't do readjustment of those numbers, then the growth rate would be affected. Whatever the growth rates you are computing from the raw reported cases would be affected, and that would actually create a lot of other issues, like understanding the basic reproductive rate, or understanding the transmission dynamics, various other levels that would affect it unless we don't do the readjustment. That's what this first time we thoroughly, we have been studying this kind of things earlier also. The first time we thoroughly explained all this, the limitations of in general mathematical models, and how this adjustment of the data to be done before we start analyzing the data. So I would like to quickly go through the first, another article that we studied based on the 9-country data that I was explaining. So we use the wavelets to understand the difference between the magnitude of the true versus the reported cases. What would be the true magnitude of an epidemic in particular country that would have ideally be there in the population, and what was reported. And then we use the wavelet to understand that, and various articles are there that published on the on the coronavirus, the various countries data that is there, references. You all can see them after the talk. Into the details are there in the article. And I'm not going to the technicalities here. We all know the Fourier. Just a background for the wavelets. We all know the Fourier series is they're just written in terms of the quotients with the natural numbers, and then you have the trigonometric terms there, and then these trigonometric terms we have still further the quotients are explained. And then I'll come back again. I'll be very happy. So we use the Myers wavelet, and then that's what using the Myers wavelet, which is an improvisation, which is the over the space, and this is differentiable over the various domains, and this is more flexible. And then we use a Myers wavelet to understand. There are a lot of wavelets are there. We use them particularly Myers wavelet. And that article I mentioned in the Journal of Theoretical Biology, you can see all the various other type of wavelets and historical information about the various wave functions used from the smallpox in the 1940s onwards, that particular article. So the idea is that, the assumption, the fundamental assumption we made is actual preparation for any epidemic, not just for coronavirus, depends on the true case, depends on understanding the true cases in the population, not just based on the reported cases. That's the key point. That's the key assumption. And this assumption found out to be true, whether they are not identified, whether or not they are identified. So what did we do? We first considered first phase 8 countries, and then we added a couple of countries, and then these 8 countries, and then India, 9 countries altogether, China, Italy. I mean, this is in the beginning of March data. At the beginning of March, if you see that, because that before the lockdown era, before the lockdown started all over the world, before that era, end of February to first week of March, if we consider, these are the countries in the decreasing order until the March 12th. These are the data, the reported data based on the WHO and other websites data in the decreasing order of the magnitude of the decreasing order of magnitude of the reported cases. You see that, at the time USA only had 870 cases, and all other countries already reached the first peak of the reported. And then we thought of, we considered the date ranges for these countries, like January 22nd to February 4 for China, and Italy. This is the date range we considered. Iran. These are the, each country has a different date range. You see that here. So during this range, they have shown the first case of, the decline of first time decline of the reported cases. That's what the first peak we call. First time peak occurred and slowly started declining. And then at the time, that's just based on the reported. It's not actual peak. It's just a reported peak we consider, because that's only available in the public domain. And other factors we considered are population density, urbanization for each country, what level of urbanization is there, and then the daily new cases reported within that range, and proportion of population in this each country with 0 to 14, 15 to 64, 65 plus. Because when you build the models, it is better to divide them by the age factors, because they're depending on the school situations, depending on what fraction of old people are there, what working class, who interacts with whom, at what age factor. So dividing the population by age is always helpful. Hence, we consider, other than the epidemic data, we also considered other demographic data and the economic, socio-economic, the urbanization data, the developmental factors like urbanization, population density, how closely they live together, the density. These factors also went into the model. And then once we we found that based on the Wuhan data, because 80,000 cases were reported in China based on only Wuhan data, just reported again. The actual pandemic could be 1 out of 149 only reported. If there are 149 individuals are infected, one among them only might have been reported during that period. And if it is if we consider more, the more population into the entire China, if you consider the same rate, if you apply for, then it could be 1 out of 1,100 patients, only reported. This could be various reasons. If this is true, the reporting is maybe not intentional, maybe that could be they're not identified, they were not diagnosed, maybe, or some of them are misled, with wrong identification, like just flu, it's not corona. We don't know, various reasons. And then same thing, if you see that in Italy, 1 in 4. That means already in the we mentioned this, we reported this based on our data first week of March, based on the model. We went and based on the model, we wanted to ask based on the model, we want to report that in the first week of March, this particular 1 in 4 were reported in Italy. And then you see that Iran, 1 in 34, and South Korea, 1 in 4. 1 out of 4 were reported, and France, 1 out of 5, and Spain, 1 out of 53, 1 in 53 cases were reported. And then the Germany, 1 in 3, and then US 1 in 406, at the time. But then the data was insufficient because we didn't reach the peak. At the time, the first peak, as I mentioned, the strict definition. The first peak has not arrived at the time. And then to understand the demonstrate, we were trying to, just a little bit of background, their improvement over Fourier transformations. And then we did that, whatever we predicted for these among the 8 countries, what I shown there, 3 countries with the predictions came out to be true. Like Italy, Italy, whatever we predicted, we said that many people were not reported, and this came out to be true. And Germany also, the reporting, we predicted that reporting was good. And after 3 weeks, so first week of March, our predictions were done. And by end of March or first week of April, already, the cases in Europe were really, they reached a lot of, many patients. We must have also, we all saw in the news, how the Italy, the patients were, piling up at hospital, all that, because the reporting was less at the time. And so that many people were suddenly, they were all developed symptoms. They were already have virus in them, but they were not identified, diagnosed, various factors involved. And Spain also, you see that, the difference between the actual pandemic, actual epidemic in the population and reported a lot of difference, except Germany, so these 3, and of course, South Korea also came out to be true. They were also reporting was very good. And our predictions were accurate. At the same time, when I analyzed the Indian data at the end of March, sometime around the middle of March to the end of March, before the severe lockdowns were started, the reporting was 1 out of 4. That also been reported at various locations in India. So that means before just the lockdown in India started at very appropriate time. In fact, a couple of a week perhaps before the actual needed. We all were worried, but then they started. But return migration and various factors, although the lockdown was started initially right time, but because of the migration issues, various things, of course, it's uncontrollable because the symptoms were not known, and the financial structures, families have to be united. Various factors, it's not just it's not just framing the rules, implementing, but overall, that reporting, whatever we done at the 1 out of 4 for India, that was just before around the lockdown period starting time, not after the lockdowns are started. And then we have recalibrated the model for the US based on this particular and the more data available. So according to the our estimate, Kranz and myself, there were only 4,000 cases reported in the middle of March, although there were 90,000 coronavirus cases. That is according to the model in the middle of March. Hence, you see that there are a lot of, we touched 1 million cases very soon. By May, June, they touched the 1 million. This is what the difference between for the US, the wavelets, the difference between the actual reported cases and the reported cases and the actual epidemic in the population. Yeah, and then other than that, the hospitalization study also done for the US, and how many people were, we predicted back in the April to June, that period, because I've been working very closely one way, to develop mathematical models and AI, all these things, and academic work was going on. At the same time, I've been doing a lot of consulting for the government officials, the state of Georgia, the governor's office. They were in touch with me. They asked to give predictions, and then the CDC are working with that. And back in India also, I've been in touch with the government officials there to various. So I also shared about these results. That at the time itself, I mentioned, I cautioned the ICM or the known officials there. That 65 plus population, if we protect them, those who are 65 plus, the lot of hospitalizations can be avoided. So this particular graph I'm going to show you, where we predicted that the lower estimate, medium estimate, higher estimate of the hospitalizations among the 65 plus is not for, I didn't mention that 65 plus, but then this data indicates only 65 plus population among the US. How many of them would be hospitalized in the non-ICU hospitalizations and ICU admissions? This was needed because hospitals need to know in advance how many patients they need to expect. So this study was helpful also because we provided the estimates 3 months before, so that they all know that national level, what level of hospitalizations could occur. And ICU admissions are the more burden for the hospital because they need to have ventilators, many others. So we also did a very localized predictions also, our modeling. So not just academic work, lot of work. I mean, major time was went on for consulting, for providing timely assistance to the doctors, timely assistance to the local county level administrations, the public health officials all went, that was prior, that was the major role. And then at the back end, almost 13 to 14 hours a day, we were all busy in the summers to understand the epidemic. So these are particular graph also we provided, and same level of numbers also I provided for India that time. That was because it's not been published. I'm not able to show that, but then this also received this particular underreporting study across the world, and then the other modeling also received, especially the Homeland Security. They also the local, local. It's like police and everything. With they also their news also mentioned about our study, and various other news channels. They mentioned about the how many people are, like, for example, the Business Line there and Indian Express. They also mentioned the underreporting study, what we have done, how the mathematical models were helpful. And then we also provided a lot of things for the various hospitals, and the various government agencies in India also consulted on understand how do we make the AI model and other things for the practical implementation. And then I'm editing a special volume for a very respected mathematical analysis journal called JMA, Journal of Mathematical Analysis and Applications. And this would consider myself and my co-authors, collaborators. Stephen Cranch is my collaborator, and then Joan Nito. I don't collaborate, but we three are. He's in Spain. We three are bringing a special. Already the authors started writing, and the invitations are done. And this is based on not just routine mathematical work where you develop a model and then you bring some parameters to put in, understand routine stuff, so that we are not interested. We want to make these models. We want to consider those articles which makes practically meaningful, because this is the time mathematicians, statisticians have a bigger role, and to assist the governments, to assist the planning, to assist the society, because we have a lot of responsibility here to make the society use our knowledge of how these quantification and data science and how the data can be interpreted, all such things. Thank you for the attention. And any of the technicalities, I'll be very happy to come back and show again those slides. Thank you. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you, Professor Rao, for your beautiful presentation. We have some questions from the audience. Professor,
Sure.
if you could please address them. So the first question is from Kantik Bishash. He asks, what if the number of respondents, small n, is less than the square root of capital N?
What is the respondents if the small n?
What if the number of respondents, small n, is less than the square root of capital N?
Yeah, that's fine. If the respondents are too less, that means the predictability in the population is also less. I mean, the sensitivity is very high, very low. That means the fraction, whatever we compute based on the small number of respondents, would not be generalized for the whole population.
Right.
If it is too small.
So the second question is from Professor Devjit Sengupta. So you had already explained about BIs in harmonic analysis and the difficulty in getting data. He asks, in case we also want to model this underreporting, is there a way to collect validation data for that purpose?
Yes, that's a good question. And the first question also I like it. I forgot to, but yeah, the small n less than square root of n1 less than square root of n. That's a good question also, because that's important question. Because if the number of respondents are very low, that's going to affect the predictability of the model. Similarly, the second part, yes, that we have to take care of the underreporting. That's what we are promoting. The underreporting or the over-reporting, sometimes multiple reporting. That's also there in my other article long ago published when I was at ISI Kolkata about the underreporting in general setup, in general framework, or multiple reporting or over-reporting. Sometimes, same individual reported several times, diagnosed several times, and maybe might have reported several times. So we need to take care that those things, whether that kind of data, we are not sure, so he's right, professor is right in terms of we need to have such studies. And then I forgot to mention in the beginning, I just drove from my home to, I was rushed I did not listen the introduction, what your introduction to the speaker. I just log in by the time already you are about to finishing your introduction. So I forgot to mention that, the Department of Statistics in Xavier, you have brilliant statisticians there. In Calcutta in general, produce a lot of, historically very brilliant statisticians and applied statisticians. So you all have a responsibility to, myself also grown up there. So responsibility to come up with the practical designs, we don't have to worry about the what is a validated model, what not. We have the common sense, data means common sense. And statistics is more for the common sense, not just to, not only the correctness. So in that sense, I agree, we have to have a study to have underreporting and then go ahead with that.
Right, sir. So the third question is from Shashwat Mukherjee. He asks, as the app is based on self-reporting, is there a component in your model to deal with the density of mobile internet consumer across a geographical region?
Correct. We do. In my the setup there, that is also there. Geographical region also That's why the respondent whenever enters the data, respondent based on the GPS information, that respondent would be identified nearest location. Suppose somebody in Dunlop area in Kolkata near ISI responds to this particular app, he won't be asked to go to Kidarpur hospital. You would be asked to go to the nearest COVID testing center only, based on the respondent's information.
Right. So the next question is from Deboshi Chakraborty. He asks, collecting responses and notifying hospitals. Are these two activities performed by the same app? For example, in many cab services, customers and drivers use separate apps.
Yeah, the same. It's if I understand the question, it's a good question. And then the same. The system is same. The AI model has two parts. The AI model, what I described, that has two components. One is the phase one is the app part. Phase two is the backend. Backend, the information that automatically detects the data, what I enter into that, and then provides the feedback to the patient. Just one piece only. It has the two components. If any respondent, if my answer is not the thing what you're asking, feel free to ask me again. I'll be happy to respond. So I hope that's because that's a question there. It has a one piece. This entire model works as a one piece, and then the identification is done through the respondent's data combined with the hospital-based AI setup at the back end.
Okay, sir. So the next question is from Obhirup Sharkar. He asks, how did you quantify urbanization used as a factor?
I did not quantify that. I used the World Bank data for these countries, all the countries I mentioned. That day, as it is, we use the data provided by the World Bank. World Bank's urbanization data and their own population age structure for all the countries. Because we had a very short time, we don't have we need to provide instantly the governments, various these things, and then planning people. That also the editor, we want to thank the editors because they were very quick in responding. They were also working very hard to get the review done, and then this is the day we use our World Bank data.
Thank you, sir. So I thank you from the Department of Statistics on behalf of Department of Statistics for your time and this enlightening speech on COVID-19. I will now request Professor Shurubhi Dasgupta of our department to propose the vote of thanks. Professor Shurubhi Dasgupta.
Thank you.
May I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So on behalf of the Department of Statistics, St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata, I once again thank the speakers, Professor Srinivasa Rao and Professor Das, for their talk. This maiden webinar, organized by the department, would not have been possible without the support and encouragement of Father Principal, Reverend Dr. Dominic Xavier, SJ, who, however, couldn't make it due to an unforeseen meeting that has happened during the time of the webinar. I would also like to place on record our sincere thanks to Professor Royan Chandra, Member Secretary, Academic Council, and an in-house member of our department for delivering the welcome address on behalf of Father Principal. My special thanks goes to Professor Parthopratim Ghosh, IQAC Coordinator, St. Xavier's College, and Professor Amit Ghosh, retired professor from our very own Department of Statistics, for their presence. The head, Department of Statistics, St. Xavier's College, Professor Durba Bhattacharya, along with all the faculty members and students, have put in a lot of effort. But may I have a few minutes to specially thank Professor Devjit Sengupta, Professor Madhura Dasgupta, and the student hosts Srijan Shen and Shomjit Roy for their seamless conduct of this first webinar. I also thank Professor Pallavi Ghosh and her team of students, Ritoban Sen, Amrita Bhattacharjee, Shoham Biswas, and Shoham Majumdar for efficient management of the YouTube live streaming, assisted in management of questions by Professor Shurupa Chakraborty. A word of deep gratitude to Professor Jayati Ghosh Dostidar of the Department of Computer Science for spontaneously offering to take us through the pros and cons of this Zoom platform in a meeting that lasted about 2.5 hours. Also, a big thank you to all professors and students and participants from other departments of our own college and other colleges who have been attendees of this webinar. Now, we will be posting the link for the review form in the chat box of the Zoom platform and YouTube channel. We will keep accepting the response till 12 tonight, that is midnight. The process of downloading the e-certificates will be communicated to the participants over mail as early as is convenient from our end. So that brings the curtains down on this evening's webinar. Before I sign out, with your permission, I would just like to add that no matter what the progression of COVID-19, I would sincerely pray and hope for a regression back to the normal pre-COVID days in the near future. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for watching us. Live streaming ends. Good night.